Tonight's broadcast is sponsored by Pleiadian Knowledge by AMR Fluid.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me today. Anyways, what I'm going to do tonight is basically give you an insight of exactly what happened to me, what my turning point was. And this turning point is what changed me. And this thing is actually legit because I have actual evidence to support what I'm saying. So I'm going to give you an insight into the story of what happened to me to actually make me realize that being balanced actually works. Now, before I go into the story, you have to understand the difference between aware and awake. Aware is you know what's wrong with the system, you know what's going on, you're aware of it, but you're really not awake to it. So, the way I can put this is you lend your brother the keys to the car. Not that that's the brightest thing to do, but you did. You lent your brother the keys to the car. Now, he's supposed to be back at 9 o'clock in the evening, and he's not back. But you start getting tired about 11:30, so you go to bed. You wake up a little bit. You're barely awake, you're aware, because you can see the outline of your brother putting the keys in the dresser. And you instantly go back to sleep. You're aware, but you weren't awake to have a conversation to tell him, hey, you moron, you're supposed to be back here. And that was a difference. And you have to remember this, because at this time when this is happening, I was aware, but I wasn't fully awake like I am now. What happened to me was, I knew things were going to change. I knew it's going to happen, and it's still going to happen. It's a cycle. But I was still living the same life, still working security. In fact, I was working for Allied Barton. It was November of 2012. And I was working I'm posted at the bank. It was Bank of America, and it's over on Rainbow. If you're not familiar with Vegas, you wouldn't know. But before this, I was working 50 hours a week, sometimes 60. I was working 14 days straight, no days off. Basically being a slave. That's basically what it was, which is what you're doing when you get a job anyways. You're not getting paid. I mean, a full-time job like that or a factory, you're not really having life. You're just being a slave. So something was really wrong, but I was going to work, and this is my 15th day in a row. I'm at the bank. I was supposed to be off, but, Tony calls you in. So I'm at the bank. And I'm sitting there doing my first patrol. I've got massive chest pains. I mean, I can feel this chest pain going. So, I text Tony. That's my supervisor. And I text him, I said, look, I'm having chest pains. For those of you working, you can imagine what these corporate people do. I get a text back going, sorry, I got nobody to replace you. You're going to have to stay there. Wait a minute here. I'm having chest pains. I got to stay here? But you got to understand, the corporate America doesn't care about you. So, it's a client. But those that know me, I mean really know me, I'm a Taurus. Okay? Tauruses are very passionate. We're good at passion. Hunks of the zodiac. We have one trait that could be good or bad. We're stubborn. And stubborn means we cannot be controlled. So I read the text from Tony, and I said, horse shit. So I immediately, because the chest pains was getting really bad, I dialed 911. And when I dialed 911, as I said, being in law enforcement security investigations, I know the routine. So as soon as the 911 operator answered, I said, hey, I'm a 44-year-old white male adult. I'm having severe chest pains. I have no medical history. I don't take any medications. I am lightheaded and having difficulty breathing. The operator asked me, what kind of pains? I said, it feels like an elephant sitting on my chest. I said, okay, I need you to sit down and relax, sir, and I'm going to send the ambulance. So I did. Uniform, anything. I sat right next to the tree, and I sat there and relaxed. The ambulance took seconds. It was there in seconds. It was really quick. They hooked me up to this machine, and the paramedic says, Mr. Fluid, you're having a cardiac episode. You're going. Oh, my mom's a nurse. Cardiac to me? Oh, great. I'm having a heart attack. At least that's what I thought. So they put me in the nice old gurney, put me in the ambulance. I couldn't resist. I text Tony and I said, sorry, I called 911, couldn't take it. They're taking me. You're on your own bye. And left it. Now, as I was being driven to the hospital by the ambulance, the EMT guy looked at me and he said, I'd like to have more patients like you. You're very calm. He goes, I don't mean the devil's advocate here, but what are you going to do if you die? I looked at him and I said, well, can't do anything about it, can I? So screw it. Now, for those of you that are sitting out there and saying, hey, that's really great, but you got to understand something. That actually is a good, legitimate question. If you're in an ambulance and it could be fatal, they kind of want to what your mentality is. So that kind of question was okay with me. Because if you're sitting there going, die? Yeah. So the mentality was there. Now here's where it gets really fun. As this story goes. And this actually happened. This is all on medical records. So everything I'm telling you can be backed up by evidence. So I get into the hospital. Sit in there. Doctor comes in and for some reason he goes, this is a real good story. No prior history and having bad chest pain. That's a great story. I'm thinking, what are you doing? Writing a freaking book? So he comes up and he tells me we're going to take this test. So okay, we're going to take this test. He's going to stick a camera into my heart and take pictures. Great. So he through the groin and the camera goes to my heart. Whoever thought the way to a man's heart is through his groin? Anyways, after this test is done, he's gone. It seemed like forever. And I mean forever. It seemed like he was gone. Then he comes back in and he says, Mr. Fluid, I got some great news for you. Your heart and your lungs are perfect. Okay. I'm thinking, great, that's good news, good. So, what caused the problem? This great doctor of what we got in the future now? I don't know, but get dressed, you're getting discharged. You're sending me home, and I have no idea what happened. Great, so here I am at 10:30 at night, my vehicle's all the way at the post, I just want to get home. So I get home, and the next day I get a ride to go pick up my vehicle and get back. Something's wrong. So I go to the VA. I tell them this is what happened. I need the VA to pay the hospital bill because this is what happened. I had chest pains. I don't know what it is. So they set me up with the best VA doctor in Henderson, which is Billy Myers. And he is. Bill Myers is a really good doctor in Henderson. So I go over there and we talk. And at that point, I'm shaking. I mean, my hands are shaking. This has been going on for a while before this anyway. I can't even hold a cup of coffee at this point. You'll know where I went. It's like, yep, Mark was here. Just follow the trail of coffee drops. I couldn't hold coffee. I couldn't even bring a plate of food from the table to the coffee table. I couldn't move it because every time I shook, everything would be all over the place. So Bill Maher says, well, I think it could be a hyperactive thyroid, but I'm not sure. Now, I was going back to Virginia because actually the woman, I still love this person, but like I said, things are happening on this planet that if you understand a prime directive, you cannot make any direct interference, which means you can't force other people. So she's got to make up her own mind. So I go to Virginia and I enroll in the Salem VA, and I tell them, look, I need to see an endocrinologist. I need to see somebody, and I brought my records. It takes me 2 weeks to get in, and I'm still not able to hold things. I mean, holding a cup of coffee is the biggest chore ever. If anybody whose hands shake, if you can understand how hard it is to hold a cup of coffee, you'll believe me, the little things most people take for granted, you wish you had a steady hand. So I get in, and he does his tests, and I come in, does his tests, he comes up and he goes, yeah, you've got a real overactive thyroid. Now, to give you a little bit of a background of this, where people say, I wish I had that problem. No, you don't. Okay? I have to go to a buffet and eat 3 helpings. And I'm talking about having the chicken, the mashed potatoes, the corn, the green beans, and probably a little bit of roast beef or meatloaf, whatever they had. And that's 3 helpings I had to eat. And I'd end up losing a pound. So it is not a good thing because it's not normal at all. But anyways, he's got me on 90 milligrams of propranolol, which is the highest blood pressure pill, and I'm taking over 60 milligrams of methimazole, which is for the thyroid. I take a job working at a security company in Roanoke, and all this medication is just, it's not me. I'm me, but I'm not. I feel like I'm in this blah. I'm not even feeling like myself. My head is not there. I'm extremely out of character because I'm very lazy. I don't want to do anything. And I'm getting worse. I'm not getting any better because the shaking's getting worse. I can't sleep. In other words, I've had 3 days where I was up straight. I could not sleep. That's how bad this was getting. I would keep going back to the doctors. I had close calls where I would collapse and then going back and forth, ambulance. I got so tired of this after 2 weeks of this because when you're lacking sleep and all this other stuff, it's just, it was coming to a head where that's enough. I got on the phone with a friend of mine, and I talked to him for hours. And he said, "What you got to go back to what you were doing before you joined the Coast Guard. You got to get back to basics." And I said, "Well, I'm not really religious anymore." I said, "I believe in creation, but I said He said, "You got the foundation." He said, "But let me tell you something. Spirituality is not a religion. It's based on yourself. Okay? You are responsible for yourself. You can't rely on other people, including doctors. Everything you do is yourself. You have to get back to your basics because you're responsible for everything that happens to you. If you're sick, it's your fault." And he was right. So I did. I went back to basics. I started meditating every day, keeping myself grounded, handled myself responsibility, did what I had to do, ate right, and made sure I meditated every day to keep that balance. A week and a half later, the doctor from the Salem VA